December 5, 1945. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, 14 men, taxi onto the runway at Naval Air Station, Fort Lauderdale. It's a Tuesday afternoon, clear skies. A routine navigation drill they've flown 100 times before. Out to a bombing range over the Bahama Banks. A few practice turns, then home before dark. The flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, has over 2,500 hours in the air. He's flown combat missions in the Pacific. This is the easy part, training the new guys. At 2:10 p.m., the Avengers lift off. 3 hours later, Taylor's voice comes over the radio. Both of his compasses have failed. He doesn't know where he is. You're listening to the Unlit Room. Every story in here actually happened. That's the part that should scare you. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. This episode's narration is AI-generated. The research, writing, and editorial decisions behind every story are made with care for accuracy and respect for those involved. Today, how 5 aircraft and 27 men vanished over the Atlantic, and why the answer was lost along with them. Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale sits on Florida's east coast. In December 1945, the war has just ended. The station is still running training flights daily, teaching navigation, bombing runs, formation flying. The TBM Avenger is a big single-engine torpedo bomber. Heavy, reliable, built by Grumman and General Motors during the war. Each one carries a crew of 2 or 3 men. Flight 19, 5 Avengers, 14 airmen total, is assigned navigation problem number 1. It's a milk run. You've done it before, you'll do it again tomorrow. The flight plan is simple. Fly east 120 miles to Hens and Chickens Shoals. Drop practice bombs, turn north for 73 miles, turn southwest back to base. Total time in the air, about 2 hours. At 2:30 p.m., the flight reaches the bombing range right on schedule. They make their practice runs. Everything is going exactly as planned. The weather is fine. The aircraft are performing normally. Then, around 3:40 p.m., the tower at Fort Lauderdale picks up a radio transmission from Taylor. He's talking to one of his students. "I don't know where we are," he says. "We must have got lost after that last turn." The instructors listening on the ground tell him to use his compass. Fly due west, and you'll hit the Florida coast. But Taylor radios back that both of his compasses are malfunctioning. One is spinning, the other is frozen. He can't trust either of them. And then he says something that changes everything. "I'm sure we're in the Keys," he tells the tower, "but I don't know how far down." The Keys, the chain of islands stretching southwest from the tip of Florida. If that's true, flying west would take them deeper into the Gulf of Mexico. So Taylor turns the flight north instead, believing that will take them up the Florida coast toward Miami. Fort Lauderdale is a small base. The instructors know Taylor. They know he's experienced. They know he's flown through weather and combat and come home. So when he says he thinks he's over the Keys, they believe him at first. It's a reasonable mistake to make if your compasses are dead and you're disoriented. Fly north, find the coast, figure it out from there. Except Taylor isn't over the Keys. He's east of Florida, out over the open Atlantic. And when he turns north, he's flying parallel to the coast, not toward it. The instructors on the ground start to realize this. They can hear other pilots in the flight talking to each other. One of them suggests they turn west toward the setting sun. It's late afternoon now. The sun is low in the sky. Fly toward it and you'll reach land. But Taylor overrides him. He's the flight leader. He believes they're over the Keys, and if that's true, flying west is the wrong move. By 4:45 p.m., the radio chatter is getting more confused. The weather is changing. A cold front is moving in from the north. The wind is picking up. The sea below them is turning rough. Shore stations are picking up fragments of transmissions. They're trying to get a radio bearing fix on the flight's position, but the signals are weak and broken. At one point, they manage to triangulate a rough location, somewhere east of Florida, out over the Atlantic. But they can't get the message back to Taylor clearly. The radios are crackling with static. The transmissions are cutting in and out. Around 5:50 p.m., Taylor makes another decision. He tells the flight to turn east. East, away from Florida, deeper into the ocean. He's still convinced they're somewhere over the Gulf, west of Florida, and that flying east will bring them back to the Atlantic side. One of the students radios that his compass is working now. He wants to turn west. Taylor tells him no. Stay in formation. Micro cliffhanger 1. The sun is setting, the weather is getting worse, and Flight 19 is flying the wrong way. There's a moment in every disaster where the window to fix it closes. Sometimes it's loud, an explosion, a structural failure, something sudden. Other times it's quiet. A decision that seemed reasonable at the time, a compass that lied, a voice on the radio that couldn't get through. By 6:20 p.m., the last clear transmission from Flight 19 comes through. The voice, it's not clear if it's Taylor or one of the students, says they're flying through rough air. The seas below them are running at 10 feet or more. Visibility is dropping. And then the transmission cuts out. Shore stations keep listening. They keep calling. Nothing comes back. The flight has gone silent. The base at Fort Lauderdale scrambles a search. At 7:27 p.m., a PBM Mer U Near flying boat, a big twin-engine patrol plane, 13 crew aboard, launches from Naval Air Station Banana River, about 200 miles north. Its mission, find Flight 19, drop flares, guide them home. The Mer Earner, call sign Training 49, radios its position a few minutes after takeoff. Then it goes silent too. At 7:50 p.m., a merchant tanker called the Gaines Mills is steaming off the Florida coast. The crew sees a burst of flame in the sky, a ball of fire that lasts a few seconds, then disappears. They report an oil slick on the water near the position where the Mer U Near should have been flying. The PBM Mer U Near was known for fuel vapor problems. It carried so much aviation gas that crews called it the flying gas tank. An explosion in mid-air would fit the sighting perfectly. The Navy launched one of the largest air-sea searches in its history. Hundreds of aircraft, dozens of ships. They covered over 300,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slicks from Flight 19, no bodies, no life rafts. The Avengers were gone, and so were the 13 men who went looking for them. In 1946, the Navy Board of Investigation released its findings. The most likely cause, they concluded, was navigational error. Taylor had become disoriented. He'd mistaken his position. He'd led the flight away from land into deteriorating weather until they ran out of fuel and ditched into the Atlantic at night in rough seas. The Avenger was a heavy aircraft. It would sink in less than a minute if it hit the water hard. The crew wouldn't have had time to deploy life rafts, and the search area was enormous. If they went down even a few miles off the estimated track, they'd never be found. That was the official conclusion: pilot error, disorientation. Tragic but explainable. Except Taylor's mother objected. Her son was an experienced pilot. A combat veteran, she didn't want his record to carry the blame for the loss of 14 men. So the Navy amended the finding. The final report listed the cause of the loss of Flight 19 as causes or reasons unknown. And that's the version that went into the history books. Unknown, mysterious, unexplained. A decade later, writers started connecting Flight 19 to other disappearances in the same region. They gave it a name, the Bermuda Triangle. The story became legend. But the truth was already in the Navy's files. A compass failed. A pilot made a wrong call, the weather turned, and 27 men, 14 on the flight, 13 on the rescue mission, were lost because a single instrument lied at the worst possible moment. If this one stayed with you, good. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Subscribe so the next one finds you too. Follow the Unlit Room wherever you listen. Tell a friend who can't sleep. Full story on the main channel. Follow if you're wide awake. That was the Unlit Room. See you in the dark.